Hey everybody, it's John from 8 Worlds News, and this is my review of Assassin's Creed 4 for the Wii U. I, like many people, shed the tear of imminent doom when Ubisoft announced their plans to turn their beloved Assassin's Creed series into an annual franchise, meaning that the games would release one per year. For a game that told such in-depth stories and beautiful and well-thought-out recreations of historical periods, this seemed like a death sentence. I put off picking up Assassin's Creed 4 for several months because I didn't want to be disappointed. I didn't want to watch a series that I had loved since its first installment be butchered in the same way that Call of Duty had. But finally the time came when I could hold off no longer. Well, never in my life have I been so happy to be wrong about a game. Before I get too deep into game design and character arcs, let's start with the basics. Using a technology that allows us to access our genetic memories, people are able to relive the lives of their ancestors.
Well, your numbers look good. Now let's make sure we can break your brain, all right?
In the previous mainline Assassin's Creed games, we've played as Desmond Miles. In Black Flag, however, we play as a nameless, voiceless researcher from the first-person perspective. The ultimate blank slate character, but more on that later. This person is reliving the life of Edward Kenway, an 18th century pirate who leaves his wife behind to seek out the riches he believes can give them both a better life.
All right, no more than 2. Promise me.
And becomes mixed up in the history-transcending tale of Templars and Assassins that any Assassin's Creed fan should be completely familiar with by now. Edward's journey is filled with love, loss, regret, and personal growth. You know what that's called? Character development. Something our friend Connor from Assassin's Creed 3 knew nothing about. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to our tangent for this review. What makes Edward Kenway such an engaging character when his grandson Connor failed to resonate with players in any way? Well, let's take a look at our mainline Assassin's Creed heroes. Altair, Ezio, Connor, and Edward. Altair and Connor are what we who are way too interested in video games call blank slate characters. Blank slate characters are generally somewhat devoid of deep emotion and character. This is generally done on purpose because it allows us as the player to project our own emotions onto the character. Link from The Legend of Zelda, for example, is a blank slate character. The extreme version of a blank slate character would be the player character from Skyrim, who is literally yours for the making. Now let's look at our other two heroes, Ezio and Edward. These are what we call predefined characters. They experience deep emotion, and we as the players, rather than projecting ourselves onto them, are intended to inhabit them, to be swept up in their characters and experience their journeys with them. Some examples of this would be Fox McCloud from Star Fox, or Nathan Drake from Uncharted. But John, you say as you yell at your computer, you seem to be saying that Altair and Connor were bad characters, despite the fact that the two blank slate characters you mentioned were both in great games. Well, viewer who talks to their computer because they have no friends, allow me to enlighten you. The Assassin's Creed games are full of tough moral decisions that your character makes for you. That's all well and good, except for the fact that in the case of Altair and Connor, I am trying to be that character and have their emotional journey for them. And having a decision made for me that I may or may not agree with throws me out of the character, leaving an uninteresting shell that I as the player feel no attachment to. In order for a blank slate character to work, one of two things must happen. 1. The character must only face moral dilemmas of pure good versus pure evil, so that I won't have any issue with their choice to be the good guy. The Legend of Zelda is an example of this. Or number 2, I need to be given the freedom to do what I want, and therefore continue to be the character, like in Skyrim. Why Ezio and Edward work so well in the Assassin's Creed series is because they are predefined characters, who I feel connected with while not being told that they are me. They are their own characters. Now, one of the most brilliant things Assassin's Creed 4 does to bring me into the game despite the fact that it features a predefined character, is to have my character who is exploring his ancestor's life be a blank slate. I can project myself onto a character and also inhabit a predefined character. And that, my friends, is character design at its finest.
Sample 17, the Kenway line.
Hey them, Connor.
Edward, the pirate.
Yar, matey.
The Assassin's Creed games have always had some great scores, and Assassin's Creed 4 is of course no exception. But it does something else that I believe makes it one of the most historically significant scores since Fallout 3. As you explore the world, you'll find sea shanties, songs that can be taught to the crew of your ship. These are actual traditional English and Irish folk songs that bring you auditorily into an already visually beautiful world.
Ready to sail for the Horn. Hey, roll and go. Our boots and our clothes, boys, are all in.
On top of the shanties, you'll also encounter people at taverns singing, and now and then even your friends can't help but burst into song. This addition of historically accurate music really helps to bring history to life. Something Assassin's Creed has always been good at, but Assassin's Creed 4 really brings it to a new level. When it comes to actual gameplay, this is your basic Assassin's Creed with one huge addition, a big blue wet thing commonly referred to as the ocean. Beyond being a technically impressive masterpiece in terms of movement and realism, the ocean allows for a hugely updated version of Assassin's Creed 3's limited naval missions. You now have the freedom to explore the entirety of the Caribbean, look for buried treasure on islands and underwater, hunt huge sharks and whales, battle English and Spanish ships, loot their holds, and use what you find to upgrade your ship and allow you to do even more. Never before has it been so much fun to ditch the primary storyline in an Assassin's Creed game. I regularly found myself dedicating entire play sessions simply to explore. When you do find yourself on land, you'll be greeted with the same tree hopping and building climbing free running mechanics of Assassin's Creed 3, polished up into a fantastic Assassin's Creed experience. If you decide to purchase the Wii U version, you'll be hit with a mixed bag of pros and cons. Bad news first, the Wii U version does suffer from some very noticeable hiccups in frame rate. While most of these have now been patched out, it's still definitely an issue in places, especially during combat. I personally never found it bad enough to hamper my enjoyment of the game, but then again, I grew up in the N64 and PS1 days when constant frame rates was a completely alien concept. Secondly, at the moment, Ubisoft has no plans to release any DLC on the Wii U version. Once again, I'm not someone who generally buys DLC, but I could see how this would be a big issue for someone who does. On the bright side, we do get a couple great added features. The gamepad implementation may seem lazy, but once you start exploring that huge ocean, having a wider view on your map as compared to the small mini-map on the main screen can be very useful, especially when you're navigating restricted areas and trying to avoid a fight. As with Assassin's Creed 3, the Wii U version features off-TV play using the gamepad. I played about half this game with the TV turned off or while my wife was watching TV, so this was a pretty big selling point for me. On top of all that, the Wii U seems to generate a crisper image than the 360 or PS3 versions, so you can decide for yourself which version makes the most sense for you. As I played through this game, there was one thing I noticed above all else. I love the Assassin's Creed games, but I've never enjoyed any of the previous entries in the series as much as I enjoyed this one. Assassin's Creed 4 is a great example of what can happen when you dare to be different. When you stop relying on what made the previous games work, and start thinking of ways to make the next one work better. Will Ubisoft be able to keep this up on a yearly basis? I'll believe it when I see it. But Assassin's Creed 4 has given me a glimmer of hope that this great franchise is going to stay great for a while longer. I'm gonna give Assassin's Creed 4 a 10 out of 10, a score I would never have given to any other Assassin's Creed game. This is a great game regardless of what system you get it on, so just go get it.
Oh, all the comrades that e'er I had, they're sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts that e'er I've loved, they'd wish me one more day to stay. But since it falls unto my lot that I should rise and you should, I'll gently rise and softly call. Good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy